You're listening to True Crime Stories. Let's walk through the case, one detail at a time.
Reeva Steenkamp was a law graduate. She had a Bachelor of Laws from what is now Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, modeling contracts with FHM and Avon, and a reality TV appearance about to air in 2 days. On the night of February 13th, 2013, she went to her boyfriend's house in a gated estate outside Pretoria. By 4 in the morning on Valentine's Day, she was dead in his bathroom, struck by 3 hollow point rounds fired through the locked toilet door. The boyfriend was Oscar Pistorius, 26 years old, the most famous Paralympian in the world. 6 gold medals across 3 Paralympic Games, and the first double amputee to compete against able-bodied runners at the Olympics 6 months earlier in London. They had been dating for about 3 months. His version of events was specific from the beginning. He said he got out of bed in the dark to bring 2 fans in from the balcony, closed the sliding doors, and drew the curtains. He said he heard the bathroom window slide open and believed an intruder had climbed in. He grabbed his 9mm pistol from under the bed. He moved toward the bathroom on his stumps without his prosthetic legs because, he said, there wasn't time to put them on. He shouted at Reeva to call the police, believing she was still in bed behind him. He heard a noise from inside the locked toilet cubicle. He fired 4 times through the door. When he turned back to the bedroom, she wasn't there. He says he then used a cricket bat to break through the door, found her, and carried her down the stairs in his arms. That is the defense. A tragic accident. A man on his stumps, terrified, defending the woman he loved against a threat that turned out to be her. The prosecution told a different story. Led by Gary Nell, a career prosecutor known in South African legal circles as the Bull Terrier. The state argued the couple had an argument, that Reeva had locked herself inside the small toilet cubicle to get away from him, and that Pistorius fired 4 deliberate rounds through the door, knowing exactly who was on the other side. The trial would last nearly 50 court days across 7 months. South Africa launched a 24-hour pop-up TV channel just to cover it. And the verdict, when it finally came, would be appealed twice, each appeal rewriting what the courts believed had actually happened that night. The case had no jury. South Africa abolished jury trials in 1969. The fact finder was a single judge, Thokozile Tokozii Le Ma Sipa, assisted by 2 legal assessors. She would decide everything. The physical evidence was complicated by the investigation itself. Lead Detective Hilton Biota was removed early after a series of missteps. A missing bullet, contamination of the scene, his footprints in the bathroom. But the bullet trajectory through the door, the position of Reeva's wounds, and the layout of the small cubicle became central to what each side argued. 3 of the 4 rounds struck her, in the right hip, in the right arm, and in the head. Ballistics expert Captain Christian Man Guy Na testified that the shots were not fired all at once, and that Reeva's arm position suggested a defensive pose. She had fallen onto the magazine rack inside the cubicle. Neighbors testified to hearing screaming that night before the shots. A woman screaming, by some accounts. The defense said it was Pistorius, that his voice when distressed sounds high-pitched. The prosecution said it was Reeva. Then there were the messages. WhatsApp exchanges pulled from their phones showed a relationship with friction. In one, written weeks before her death, Reeva told him she was scared of him sometimes, that he picked on her, that he had a temper. Other messages were affectionate. Nell argued the relationship was volatile. The defense argued they were normal conflicts in a new relationship. The autopsy added another detail. The contents of Reeva's stomach indicated she had eaten only a couple of hours before her death, contradicting Pistorius's account that they had eaten earlier and gone to bed. Pistorius took the stand. He cried. He vomited during graphic testimony about the wounds. At one point during sentencing, he removed his prosthetic legs and walked across the courtroom on his stumps to demonstrate his vulnerability. Nell was unmoved. "You will blame anybody but yourself. You are lying. You just refuse to take responsibility for anything." On September 12, 2014, Judge Masipa delivered her verdict. Not guilty of the more serious charge. Guilty of culpable homicide, South Africa's equivalent of manslaughter. Her reasoning was that the state had not proved Pistorius intended to cause Reeva's death, or that he foresaw her death as a possible outcome of firing through the door. She sentenced him to 5 years. He served 10 months before being moved to house arrest at his uncle's home in a Pretoria suburb. The state appealed, and in December 2015, the Supreme Court of Appeal delivered a unanimous 5-judge ruling that rewrote the case. Justice Eric Leach, writing for the panel, focused on a doctrine in South African law called Dolus Eventualis. It applies when a person foresees that their actions might cause death and proceeds anyway, accepting the risk. The court found that Pistorius, a trained firearms owner using high-caliber ammunition, firing 4 times through a closed door at chest and head height into a space he knew was small, had to have foreseen that whoever was behind that door would likely die. The identity of the person on the other side, the panel ruled, was legally irrelevant. The culpable homicide verdict was set aside. A conviction on the more serious charge was entered in its place. The case was sent back to Judge Masipa for resentencing. In July 2016, she sentenced him to 6 years, well below the 15 years statutory minimum for that offense, citing remorse and his disability as substantial and compelling circumstances. The state appealed again. In November 2017, the Supreme Court of Appeal raised the sentence to 15 years, less time already served. He served 8.5 years in prison, plus 7 months of house arrest. He was released on parole on January 5, 2024. His parole runs until 2029 and includes mandatory anger management. The analytical point of this case isn't whether he meant to cause her death. The appeals court explicitly said that question doesn't matter. Under South African law, a person who fires 4 rounds through a closed door into a confined space has accepted the consequence of what they will find on the other side. The intent is built into the act. What lingers is the framing the world accepted at first. A tragic accident, a misunderstanding, a famous athlete, vulnerable, scared. It took 3 court rulings to get from that framing to a 15-year sentence. And even then, the original trial judge resisted the result. Reeva's mother, June Steenkamp, said it in one line: "We who remain behind are the ones serving a life sentence." So here's the question worth sitting with. When the facts of an act are not in dispute, when the weapon, the door, the rounds, and the location of the person are all admitted, how much should a defendant's celebrity, vulnerability, or remorse be allowed to reshape the legal name we give to what they did? Drop a comment with your take. And if this kind of careful walk through the evidence is what you come here for, subscribe. There's a new case every 2 days.